I am David Medina. I am a certified Hakomi teacher, and I'm very excited to be here with Flint Sparks, which is a Hakomi legacy holder. He's been teaching Hakomi for many, many years. He's one of the people that Ron Kurtz designed for continuing with his legacy teachings. He's also a Zen teacher and also a former psychologist, and I'm going to read this to say it properly. As a former psychologist whose work supports the integration of psychological and spiritual growth in support of full human maturity and what he calls, and we can talk about this, he calls the double helix of growing up and waking up. And he's in Hawaii, in Molokai, and me, I'm in Pamplona, Spain. We're like 12 hours difference, and it's amazing that we can be just here together and sharing this with all of you.
It's interesting, with 12 time zones, we're half the world away.
Yes, exactly.
Yet our hearts and minds in one place.
Yeah.
It's so nice.
Exactly.
Thank you for inviting me to do this, since I'm unable to come to Bilbao for the meeting. It's so great to be able to speak to you, and in doing so, to be able to communicate with the other people that are going to be in the meeting.
Yeah, we are organizing this beautiful meeting in Hakomi meeting in Bilbao for all our community, and also for open to anybody that want to be there.
Yeah. So what do you say? Muchísimas gracias.
De nada. De nada. My pleasure.
Yeah.
And yeah, at some point, talking with Donna and Georgia, it arises the possibility of having an interesting conversation about what we have called the ultimate paradox. You know, like finding the balance between accepting the present moment just as it is, and how we are right now, and what life is presenting to us, accepting that, and also being more proactive in bringing about change.
Exactly. It's an interesting question, isn't it?
Yeah, because we work, you know, in Hakomi, all the people that come to our work, they are looking mainly for change, for a change in their lives. And at the same time, we work from a place that we honor whatever it is. We don't want to change anything in the person, you know, with this non-violent principle, you know, and there is there's a paradox there, right?
Exactly. And that paradox has something to do with what you referred to earlier in this double helix, growing up and waking up. Mm-hmm. And I'll refer to some Buddhist teachings, because I can speak from that place along with Hakomi in a way that begins to speak to the paradox that you're talking about. My teachers would often say, we practice for no gaining idea. In other words, we set ourselves completely on the path of practice, whether it's a Buddhist practice, a Hakomi practice, whatever deep thing we're called to do, with no gaining idea, no idea that we're going to accomplish something, but with wholehearted aspiration for goodness. There's a very famous quotation from the Zen teacher Shunryu Suzuki. He was the man who began the San Francisco Zen Center, and he is the lineage in which I'm ordained as a Zen teacher. And he, in the middle of a retreat one time, when people were very tired and it was a little bit challenging in the middle of a week-long retreat, he said to people, you know, you're perfect just like you are, and you could use a little improvement.
So sorry,
you can use a little improvement. So he's speaking exactly to this paradox. Mm-hmm. I accept you perfectly just like you are, and there's some things that would be good to work on. But even in psychotherapy, early creators in the field of counseling and psychotherapy, like Carl Rogers, for example, in client-centered therapy, he spoke deeply about when you can accept yourself and the other as they are, that opens a gate for change that can happen. So the acceptance isn't a passivity. It's not saying, oh, well, we'll just accept it like it is. No, it's a seeing clearly and accepting fully what's here so that you can respond appropriately in case something is needed. The acceptance is the gateway to potential transformation, not a lying down in passivity or some sort of surrender in that way.
Yeah.
So that's part of the interesting paradox. It seems like a paradox until you begin to enter it more fully and realize what you're inviting with a client or with yourself. You're inviting a deep capacity to rest with exactly what's here. And in Buddhism, that ability to see clearly what's right here without leaning in too far and grasping, or without pulling away too far and leaving, or without dissociation. And those things are called greed, hate, and delusion. But without any of that, if you can really just meet life as it is, that's wisdom. That's clear seeing. When we see life as it is, our hearts are open to it because you see the difficulty, you see the struggles, you see the beauty. And to be able to meet that deep reality without turning away or reacting too much is compassion. And so wisdom and compassion work together like two wings of a bird to open to a great possibility. Wisdom says, I can see clearly what's actually happening, not through a veil of conditioning or habit pattern or distortion. And when I see clearly, what I see is the suffering and difficulties, mostly unnecessary, that people go through, and then also the necessary parts of being human. And so I can respond more appropriately. The more I stay, the deeper I can see. The deeper I see, the more I'm challenged to stay close and not pull away. And so they begin to open a gateway for us of both accepting what's here and responding appropriately to what's needed once we're in the present moment and can see clearly. There are two old Zen teachers, one from the 13th century and one from the, I think, 17th or 18th century. The first one, Dogen, he was asked, what is the mind of enlightenment? But it's really like our asking, what does freedom look like? What does healthy human being look like? What does this mind that's very mature look like? And he said, in Chinese, but he said something like, intimacy with all things. The capacity to meet life exactly as it is. Intimacy, not emotional intimacy, but to meet each thing exactly as it is. Now that same question was asked of another Zen master, Unman, in the 18th century. And he said, the mind of awakening is an appropriate response. So if you think of these two things together, can we meet life as it is without distortion and then respond appropriately? That's the Hakomi way. And all of the principles of Hakomi, all the techniques that arise from it, all the development of personhood that come from it, are in the support of actually being able to meet life exactly as it is, to see a person clearly, and then to respond appropriately. So the seeing clearly is a full and deep acceptance. Everything is included. Everything belongs. But when you see something that belongs and is true and is clear that has some pain, you might want to respond to it. So we're both accepting deeply, but responding appropriately. And this begins to bridge this paradox, I think. I know I'm talking a lot. Does this seem to begin to address the question a bit?
Yeah, and I can Yeah, I can relate it also to my own experience, and we are all the time watching transformation in the work that we do, you know, over and over.
Yes.
And at the same time, I can see that when I teach mindfulness or in my own personal experience, when you just want to be with what is, and it can bring you the idea that, okay, everything is okay.
Mhm.
Everything is okay as it is. So maybe you can go into a little indulgence. We say that we say that in
Yes,
English.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
Indulgence, yeah.
And indulgence, and maybe nothing changed.
That's right. Because you might be just a little bit passive. It was like if all you did was make contact statements,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
it doesn't go very far. It starts, it opens the gate,
Yeah.
but then where do you go once you have this connection that has been made? It's very deep.
Yeah. If at some points you don't interrupt suffering or and generate a new, you know, a new way of being with life and with your posture and with your beliefs, you know,
Mhm.
you don't change anything, nothing changed, and then you can go on and on and on with your unnecessary suffering. Yeah.
Exactly. One of the problems, and you know this, it's central in Hakomi, is that if we enter the space with an agenda, then that agenda begins to shape what's going to be possible or not possible. And that agenda often is, I think this should be changed or this is wrong. And the space is not really opened cleanly or clearly. When the space is opened with a lot of clarity, which I'm calling, wisdom and compassion, then the transformation that we see can begin to move on its own, because it's based on a primary belief in basic sanity, that freedom is what wants to happen, and balance is what is natural if we set the conditions. And so in a way, the deep acceptance isn't an indulgent kind of passivity, like, oh, well, it's ability to see clearly without disturbing the system, so that you can know what needs attention in that way.
Yeah, and I can also relating to my personal experience, and also when we are like we are proactive in changing, it's very easy to go into a place that what you are now is not enough, or what you are now is not good, or you know, and then it seems to touch a deep collective wound, you know, because
That's right.
because I remember in Bilbao in the Hakomi training, we were working with this idea of being good enough, and mostly anybody could take that in, you know.
Yes, if you
Like
offer that as
yeah, I'm good enough. No one in my group, no one around me, you know, no one could take that. Like, so how easy is to give yourself that message because you want to change or you want to achieve an ideal or something different that what you are now.
Yeah, and hold them together. It's that you're perfect just like you are, and you could use a little improvement.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The combination. There's that perfection thing is a bit difficult, and I know it's some linguistic things, but in spiritual practices, you'll hear sometimes people say, everything is perfect just like it is, and it empty of any difficulty, and so it sounds a little strange. It doesn't feel quite right. But I think it's because there is a misunderstanding of what that perfection is pointing to. When one would say everything is perfect, it simply means everything is a perfect expression of all of the causes and conditions which went into creating it. Because nothing could be anything but that. And so when you see some difficulty or some tangle, oh, it's perfect expression of everything that went into making that. And if you can see that with curiosity and openness and compassion, then it's like, oh, this is what's happening. Now I see Now you can respond. Now there's something possible to make a change. But if you say that's wrong, it's bad, it's not enough, it's too much, now there's an attitude that is making the world and the possibilities smaller. And we do that with ourselves all the time, like you said, by saying, I'm not enough. And you offer that as a probe, like it's not going in for anyone. There's even a sense of most of the suffering that we experience probably surrounds some feeling of lack, something not enough. And the kind of lack, the kind of primary sense of not enough is usually around love, around acceptance. And so this kind of acceptance is really, really crucial. In the beginning, from the very beginning, it's a foundation.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking, you know, that is the foundation for that growth, or for that later growth, because I see many techniques of way of working with yourself that, what do you want to become, you know? Mm-hmm. What do you want to become? What is your ideal, or what is your goals, and this and that, you know? It's like, how easy that can send you the message that now you're not enough, or
exactly.
You're not good as you are now.
Well, and this is getting back to your original kind of curiosity about my language of this double helix thing,
yes.
of growing up, waking up. Pardon me. You know, I've spent the last 40 years as a psychotherapist and a teacher of psychotherapy. And in that, I see people like yourself and many beautiful people who are very psychologically insightful and have immense skill and a lot of self-reflective capacity. But there's a subtle way in which we can all get caught in cycles of self-reflection and self-identification, because we've been working in this arena to help both ourselves and others. So everything looks like something to solve. And it's all around self-identification and around self-identity. And we sometimes lose sight of the ability to step off of that, step off of self-improvement, like giving up the project of self-improvement. And so I see that limitation in psychotherapy. Now I've spent the last 25 years or so in monasteries and temples training as a Buddhist teacher and as a Zen teacher. And I see people who understand the Buddhist teachings beautifully, and they can teach them in a very wise and very compassionate people. And if they sit in stillness and silence and long periods of meditation, inevitably, like for all of us, things bubble up.
Yes.
And they have absolutely no idea what to do with it. And the invitation to just sit more doesn't help. In fact, think if someone carries trauma, like so many of us, this is a bit of a simplification, but if you're asked, what causes bad experiences to become embodied trauma? Two primary things. You can't speak about it, and you can't move or act in some way that makes a difference. But what did they tell us to do in a meditation retreat? Don't speak, don't move. So trauma is, psychological work, very useful, but can be limited if you can't step off of the idea of a solid individual self that needs improvement. Spiritual work opens you to the universal beauty of everything, but if you don't know how to work with what arises, you get stuck. But you put them together, and now you have these two strands of maturity, the double helix, like DNA, that inform each other of growing up, psychological work, waking up, spiritual work. And they're really the same thing, but they're two sides of this paradox. They're actually the energy of maturity is the biggest term here. And there was an old Japanese Zen master, his name was Uchiyama, who died about 20 years ago now, but he worked with a lot of European students and American students because he had some English ability and he liked working with them. And there's a term in Buddhism, an ideal, and you were talking about this ideal we have sometimes, the Bodhisattva Ideal, and it's in English. A Bodhisattva is a being who's, dedicated to everyone's freedom, basically. And so it's an ideal that is easily understood and that people can relate to. And one day in a teaching, one of the students asked Uchiyama, "What is a bodhisattva?" The student knew the answer, but students ask us all the time just to see what we'll say in those moments. And so he said, "What is a bodhisattva?" And in his difficult English, Uchiyama said, "I think a grown-up, a mature human being. It's not some esoteric straight, like a fully mature person. But if you put these two things together of spiritual and psychological growth, this kind of maturity doesn't have a ceiling. It can continue to flower and open, but everything is present all the time from the beginning, so there's nothing wrong with you. Everything in a seed for an oak tree is complete, but it can open further if the right conditions are there. And it become a little sprout, and it can become a large tree, and make another tree. So everything is perfect, which is not fully realized. And so once again, we're back to this this kind of. Yeah, one more thing that you mentioned, if you don't mind my saying, you were talking about this ideal or goal that we have, because we can see what we would like, what we would prefer, what we love, but it relates to these two sides, and that is the difference between having a goal and having a vow.
A vow? What is this?
You know this word in Spanish? It's like a deep spiritual aspiration.
Yes.
Yeah, making a vow.
Yes, I know.
Goals can be accomplished. I want to work towards my certification as a Hakomi practitioner, and I do the things, and I reached the goal. Yes. There's an end point. You can do it. A vow, or this deep aspiration, you actually can't accomplish it, and there's no end. But it steadily guides you for your entire lifetime. It's a track that goes forever, but you have to follow it with some discipline. And so there are goals that we can reach, and they're beautiful and they're good to do, but they're somewhat limited. The vows are unlimited and keep us on a direction, probably in support of our goals, but they're a little different. So if our vow is to be a fully, a free-functioning, awake human being, you can't accomplish that by goals. You can do some goals in there, but it's not going to open you to the whole thing. So it's I don't know if this is more confusing or more clarifying, but there's sort of a beautiful part that you personally can't do, but can be done by your active engagement in the world. So for you and me, we can't heal our clients, but we can engage with them in ways that are wholesome and skillful, so that the aspiration that they heal does open on its own. But we're not doing it. But without us, it wouldn't be done. So
yeah, it's happening in front of us, and we are part of it, but we are not making it.
Right, it happens actually between us. It's the space between where everything happens. And that's what we're creating, and that's the genius of what Ron was developing, is a way to enter and to invite and to open and skillfully navigate that space in which healing is possible.
Oh, yeah.
And it requires these two views that always go together. the relative and the absolute, the mundane, the sublime, the everyday, the spiritual, whatever you want to call it. Ram Dass, you know, the famous teacher, he said one time, if we get too far out, we lose our humanity. If we get too caught in everydayness, we lose our divinity.
Beautiful explain.
And we're both, you know. So these are just different ways of saying this thing about this paradox. And by the way, another little funny line. Suzuki, the Zen teacher I mentioned, he was talking to students one day about this question. And he said, you know, if it's not paradoxical, it's probably not true. the big
Wow.
key, you know?
Yeah, wow.
You know, because when you find the paradox, you're closer to this larger truth that is, well, for my work in Hakomi and my Zen training, the term I use for this is, I hope it translates okay, is the embodied inconceivable. You can
paradoxical also.
See, you can understand it deeply through your body, but you can't conceive of it. You can't hold it in your mind, but you can hold it in this personhood. And that's exactly what Hakomi invites us to do.
Oh, yeah, I was delighted and how, my God, how you explained this thing of a spiritual sitting with what is and the psychological growth and the helix, like the DNA.
Yeah,
that was really beautiful.
It seems like it's something that people can understand, but it's a profound teaching that can open into a lot of directions. But the two sides are really important to understand. And I'm just saying these things. It's the same thing over and over, but hopefully it will help people. One of my really favorite spiritual teachers, a Zen teacher, her name is Joan Sutherland, and she has a different language for this. From the sort of spiritual practice side, she says, enlightenment is not the goal. Awakening is the term she uses. We want to wake up to this fullness of reality, which includes enlightenment and what she calls endarkenment. In other words, there's the bright light that opens with awareness and mindfulness as we unpack and loosen our conditioning. But there's also the plunging into the darkness of our shadow and what's unseen. And because there's much gold to mine from that area. And so if we just try for enlightenment, we're trying to be pure. And it kind of fits that idea of being perfect or good or better. And if we just stay with the dark, we can understand our depths, but there's not much light there. It's a little despairing. But together, once again, we can wake up to the fullness. And the image in Buddhism is of the lotus flower. The beautiful, pristine lotus is the image of enlightenment. But the lotus flower can only grow in very muddy, dirty water. It can't grow in fresh water. And so all of us have enough mud to grow a lotus. It requires these two sides. So again, same teaching, different language.
Yes.
Over and over. So this fundamental question that's being asked is something that is moved through teachers for thousands of years, because it's something so fundamental about being human. And we are blessed to be in situations where we're invited by our clients and by each other in our training to sit with each other in this unique space of understanding that this is where we sit in the middle of this question. It's not to be resolved as it is to be open. I asked one of my teachers a question. I don't even remember what the question was really one time. And he said, "Oh, that's such a good question. It would be a shame to answer it."
This is one of
those questions.
Yeah.
we keep opening it, because it's very generous and abundant question, you know.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that was taking me back to the beginning, not to that sentence that you say, "Oh, you are perfect as you are, and you can have a little improvement."
Exactly.
Yeah, and also, but the first part is just you are perfect as you are. The first part of the sentence, and that takes me also to our practice. You know, to our practice of Hakomi. You know, when we are in front of somebody, that person is perfect as she or he is.
That's right. They need to know that when we're looking at them, what we're seeing is okayness. We're seeing goodness.
Yeah, okayness,
Not
and
seeing like, oh, what a problem, you know.
remembering their wholeness.
Exactly. Exactly. My ordination teacher that I studied with until she died, Blanche Hartman from San Francisco, she was old enough that she actually started practicing with Suzuki when he was alive, back in the 70s. And she said the first time she had a private session with him to sit and speak, she told me, she said, I could see in his face that all he saw when he looked at me was Buddha. And I couldn't understand that. Because I knew who I was. How could he see perfection? How could he see beauty? And I could see in his face that's what he saw. But if we're doing a good job in Hakomi, that's the way we're looking.
Yeah, definitely. And I've lived that as a client. Hold on, just one second. I'm gonna put some light.
Sure. More enlightened.
It's getting a little dark here.
More enlightenment.
Yes. No, I was saying that I've seen that as a client. I've seen that look from therapists, Donna, you know, or whoever was working with me, and also when I have somebody that is kind of broken in front of me, you know, I always try to see that side, you know, that wholeness,
that's right,
that perfectness, even though the person is suffering or having, you know,
because they're sitting in front of you with the courage to show you their brokenness.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
And the courage to show you their brokenness is the perfection. That's the strength and the beauty, because you're not confused when you see the brokenness. You don't forget who they are. You just know, oh, this is a precious person who's expressing their brokenness, and they have the courage to do that.
Well, that touches me. What you have just said, you know.
Yeah.
It's what a courage, you know, to show your brokenness to somebody, yeah.
Yeah, and so that's the space we're offering, isn't it? That's what we're opening. And it only opens if they can see that we see their beauty, their perfection, loving presence. We see that without dismissing the brokenness, that we get it, that we know them, but we also see their beauty. So this is the embodied expression of the paradox. Even if we can't conceive of it, we're embodying it, and the person in front of us gets it. And you know the feeling. I know the feeling.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I'm touched by that, because it's something, that courage of showing the brokenness is enough for us to be inspired, you know, from a loving presence point of view. You know, you can be inspired just by that, just by the courage to show their brokenness in front of us.
Yes. I remember the one session when I was working with Ron in a training, and we were doing a demo, and he was the therapist, and we were speaking about this very issue about personal acceptance. And he said, you know, the way he would say things, he said, I'm going to tell you something that I heard from one of my Tibetan teachers. And I want you to just let it in and see how it lands, the way he would say things, you know. He said the statement was, the ground of being is unconditioned good. Then he said, your ground of being is unconditioned good. And of course, it touched me very, very deeply. And what I heard, what landed was the space of my being is basic goodness and sanity without any conditioning. Now, it holds all of my conditioning, all of my brokenness, all of my beauty, all of my tangles, all of my difficulty is all there. But the basis, the ground of being on which it rests, is a goodness that is beyond conditions. And that was a turning point for me. To understand that a little more deeply inside.
Yeah, as I listen to you, I try to take it in also, you know.
Yeah, landing.
Beautiful. So beautiful. Yeah.
Well, and you know, that's it. Not to make too much of it, but that's one of the little things of how we transmit, and we all do it, not just those of us called legacy holders. We're transmitting this legacy. Ron offered it to me. I offer it to you. And it flows through us. But it's beyond us, but it flows through us, and it requires a human body so we can offer it and make it useful for another person. And that's our responsibility. And that's what we train ourselves and discipline ourselves to be a good holder, a better ground in some ways, and more skillful, because the goodness is there, but the skillfulness, without obstruction, without things in the way. And we began to realize as we transform and we watch our clients transform, it's so amazing. We don't want to do anything else, you know. The best thing. You know?
Yeah. It's our vow, isn't it?
It's our vow, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. I got it.
Yeah, there was instead of just running by our, we use the other Buddhist word karma, you know, just our conditioning. Mm-hmm. This, the Zen master who said the thing about intimacy, mm-hmm. He said, ordinary people are those dragged by karma. Bodhisattvas are led by vow. So it's just another way of saying we can be pulled around by our conditioning and habits and automatic unconscious behaviors, we say in Hakomi. Or we can wake up to a different possibility and then offer ourselves to that possibility, and with each other, assisted self-discovery. Each other, we offer ourselves to each other so that we can be led by something more wholesome than our small fears and thoughts and behaviors and habit patterns. And so we actually, most of us, put our faith and trust in something that is not worthy of our faith and trust, which is basically our thoughts and our feelings and our behaviors, you know, our small conditioned self. But if we begin to have faith in our true nature and the ground of being, and actually what we see in each other, mostly see in the other one, and have faith in that, and we reflect it to each other, we can be led by this beautiful ideal. Instead of thinking there's something wrong with us, it's like, oh, let's continue to help each other express the beauty that's always there. It's already present. It's always there. I have faith in that. And our work with people over time deepens that faith.
That's true.
Yeah. It's one of the excitements, I think, when we come together in meetings or a training, is that we know at some level we're going to be with other people who have the same vow, and it encourages it and feeds it and waters it and nourishes it, and it's so inspiring to do that, you know.
That's why I believe that this meeting is going to be very exciting, you know, to have fun. to gather all those people with the same vow and with the love for what we do. And yeah,
I've had family members or other people say, well, haven't you gone to one of those trainings before? Why are you going again?
Yeah, come on.
Yeah, why do you go back? Didn't you do that? And I said, well, there is beautiful content. It's true that we do learn new things. And it's good to be with our friends, and there's refinements in our skill. Things like that happen. I said, but I actually don't think that's the main reason that we come back together as a group and settle back into that beautiful space that always happens. And they said, well, what do you think it is? I said, because we all long deeply to remember that life can be like this.
Yeah.
The way that it opens in those groups, because we're in the world that isn't like that, and we long to remember, oh yeah, it can be like this. It can be like this. And that's not a small thing.
It's true.
It's a very big thing,
Yeah, and at the same time, the more you repeat, the easier it can be repeated outside there.
Of course, we take it out.
Yeah.
And then that's our gift.
Yeah.
Because it's not self-centered.
Yeah.
There's a beautiful little a kind of a verse or chant that we do at our center. And it's in some ways a poetic version of the Buddha's Four Noble Truths, but we don't need to worry about that. And I'll tell you that the four lines, and many people who practice with me in meditation retreats like Josh and Trudy and Sophie, and a lot of people know this. And Sophie will tell you it in French. So here, there are four lines, and it's exactly what we've been talking about. Caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering.
Yeah.
Holding to self-centered thoughts, exactly the dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher. Being just this moment, compassion's way. So the first two lines, caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering, that's like caught in our habit pattern, that's easy. And holding, committing to those things and repeating them, we keep the dream going. So I say we can either practice our habits and conditioning, or we can practice with our habits and conditioning. We can use them as the entry point to awakening, or we can just practice them.
We get very good at doing that. No? We can be very good at doing that, yeah.
That's right. You get good at what you practice.
Exactly.
That's it. And the stronger version of that is, think, what are you willing to die for? Because that's what you're doing right now. The only outcome of this is we're going to die. And this is what you're committed to. So you have to ask yourself a deep question. The third line is the turn. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher. That says you can make a vow to make each moment an opportunity to wake up and be a teacher, or you can just let it be an ordinary thing. One of my teachers said to me one time, why would you turn a perfectly good practice opportunity into an ordinary event? Every single moment is a possibility to just be awake and be present and to live your life. Or you can just go to sleep and make it something you like or you dislike or you ignore. Ordinary life. So each moment, life as it is, the only teacher, and being just this moment, in other words, being mindful and present and connected in this moment, is the way of compassion, is the way of meeting the difficulties of the world and not turning away, reacting, going away, caught it back in the self-centered dream. You can even read it backwards. Being just this moment. If we can be just in the moment, it's the way of compassion. How do we learn that? By paying attention in each moment and letting us teach us something. Each moment, life as it is the only teacher. When we do that, we're not holding to self-centered thoughts. We're not caught in our habit patterns. And we break the cycle, we break the dream of self-centeredness and self-identification and separateness. So it's a nice little thing. You can tattoo it on your arm and then you can remember, you know.
Okay, Flint. Wow. Very inspiring.
Well, it's inspiring to speak with someone and to open this space together. And so it calls forward these things from you and from me that help us know each other and relate to each other and to care for each other. And I would say the thing that we don't often let ourselves say, you know, people come to Hakomi to learn something and maybe to also change themselves. But really, at the bottom line, what they find out at the end is they just simply fall in love. And you see Hakomi groups, what's at the end? Yeah, they're better therapists and they're more free, but they've fallen in love with each other.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And that's, yeah, I worked so much with people who are dying. That's one of my specialty areas in hospitals. And at the end of life, so many people are saying, basically the only thing that really matters at the end is, did I love well? Was I loved? You know, that's kind of the end. And then we look in the beginning at the research on secure attachment and love, and we see, oh, that's the most robust predictor of well-being, is to be able to love and be loved as an infant. It's the most important thing in the beginning. It's the most important thing at the end.
Yes.
And every place in between.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just one more thing before we finish. Yep. Yes. I would like just to say you one thing, and maybe all the people that is watching this can listen it also, you know. Just wanted to say you thanks, of course, for this conversation, and just say you that you are perfect as you are, and you can have a little improvement.
Yes. And hold both, as the saying. Yeah. That's what this is when we bow. Oh, there's the perfection of the absolute. There's the messiness of the relative, and we bow to it. As humans, we're messy miracles.
Wow, messy miracles. Yeah, that's great.
And we get to, luckily, we have the opportunity to involve ourselves in that process, because we're very fortunate people. Thank you so much for setting aside this time.
Thank you very much.
And I hope that by offering this, it can extend my care and love and appreciation to everyone in the meeting.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Flint.
Adios.
I stopped now it's not recording anymore. Beautiful.